Good morning from Phoenix, Arizona, and welcome to my 5-minute message. Ben was born to an unwed mother in the hills of Tennessee, and she was not able to really take care of him. So she took him to the nearest town where there was an orphanage, and she just left him on the doorstep and left. Well, as you can imagine, in a small town, this created quite a buzz. Who was this child that was just left on a doorstep? And it became kind of the talk of the town. Well, Ben, as he grew up, had a pretty rough time of it. All of his people that in the orphanage kept asking him, "Whose child are you?" And of course, he didn't know. He'd go to school, they'd ask him at school, "Whose child are you?" He didn't know. And as he went on, it just became such a burden that he had to carry, not knowing whose child he was. He wouldn't even play with the kids. In fact, when they would go out to the park to play, he would just sit down by a tree and let them play. Well, one day a new preacher came to town and saw Ben laying by the tree. The preacher walked up to him and said, "Hello, who are you?" He says, "My name is Ben." I said, "Well, Ben, it's good to meet you. I'm the new preacher here, and I'm going to be preaching at this church right across the street here. So I'd love to have you come in and hear me some Sunday." And Ben smiled and nodded, and off he went. One day, Ben decided to go to church and see what this guy was all about. And he sat and listened to the message, and he enjoyed it. But he would always leave early because he didn't want anybody else asking him, "Whose child are you?" So he would always show up early or show up late, leave early, and that way he never had to deal with that question. One day he made a mistake, though. He got wrapped up in the message and forgot to leave early. And as he got up to leave, of course, everyone was staring at him because he doesn't normally stay that long, and they all had that question. But as he walked down the aisle, he met the preacher. The preacher said, "Hello, Ben. I am so glad you stuck around today. Thank you so much for coming. By the way, Ben, whose child are you?" And a dead silence fell across the entire congregation because they had been wanting to know this question for years. But he actually had the temerity to actually ask it out loud. And they all wanted to know the answer. And the preacher said, "Wait a minute, I know you. Why, the resemblance is unmistakable." Well, that had everybody's locked in at this point. You could have heard a pin drop in that church. And the preacher said, "Ben, you are a child of God. You have quite an inheritance. Go out there and make your father proud." And that put such a pep in Ben's step after that, he was never the same. In fact, he was born in the late 1800s. But in the year 1911, he was elected as the governor of Tennessee. And he always points back to that time as making a big difference in his life. It's amazing what one simple word of kindness can do. It can change someone's whole direction of their life. What does the Bible say about this? Let's take a look and see. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verses 24 and 25, we read this one a lot. He says, "And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." That's one of the main purposes of the church, is to encourage one another and help one another as we go through our challenges here in this world. Also in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 11, it reads, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing." That is part of what we do, is not by just encouraging one another, but it builds us up, makes us stronger, makes us better, leads us to greater things. And that's what we should be doing. Our last verse this morning will be in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 13, where it says, "But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today, so that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." We're not supposed to just encourage one another when we see each other on Sunday or Wednesday, but daily. We can do that in so many different ways, but it helps us become stronger as we encourage others and they encourage us. There's a song that we sing called "Oh, the Things We May Do." And the first verse is, have you lifted a stone from your brother's way as he struggles along life's road? Have you lifted some frail, toil-worn hand, shared with someone their heavy load? Oh, the things we may do, you and I. You and I. Oh, the love we can give if we try. Just a word or a song as we're passing along. They will count in the great by and by. Have you encouraged someone today? We should be looking to encourage someone every single day. Just a kind word, a phone call, an email, a text, a card in the mail. Go by to someone that you know needs a little help and give them some assistance. Maybe help them arrange their garage or mow their lawn, or someone who has been sick. Maybe bring them some food and let them know that you're thinking about them and that you love them. It's those type of encouragements daily that can make such a difference in someone's life, and the dividends will pay off in the future. Wait a minute. Whose child are you? Well, I recognize you. Why, the resemblance is unmistakable. You are a child of God, and you have a fantastic inheritance. Go out today and make your Father proud. Thank you for listening.